All right, what's up, guys? Welcome to the Get Down presented by Digital Music Pool. My name is Cream.
Gary W. here. A very tired Gary W.
Dude, I don't even know how you're surviving or even alive on Tuesday here. If it were me, I'd still be in bed today after your weekend.
This is why having weeks off at a time helps. Because I can go and do that. I DJ'd for damn near 40 hours this weekend. I did 24 hours on Saturday and Sunday. So literally one full day of Saturday or Sunday was filled with DJing.
How do your legs feel? How does your back feel?
I was telling you that I think I could really withstood it because the new Nikes that I bought felt great all weekend.
Yeah, because you wear like sandals and like, I don't even know the name of the shoes you wear, but there's absolutely zero cushioning. Yeah. Like Air Zoom, this is like barefoot. What you used to wear. Esplanades, is that what they're called? What are they called?
Yeah, so I wear sandals predominantly when it's warm down here, and then espadrilles like when I dress to go out, and they're just hemp bottom shoes. So obviously there's nothing involved there. I know that everybody listening right now is like, who is this hippie?
Pure hippie. That's all that is. Pure hippie.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's true with all the Grateful Dead art and whatnot that I have all over my house. I am pretty much a hippie, but kind of funny. I had some of the greatest sets I've had of the year over the weekend. It was phenomenal. Birch was absolute electric on Saturday, and then followed that with a 626 set that was incredible. We can go into later because we're going to talk a little bit about taking chances as a DJ and how we feel like we've gotten away from that a little bit, but we can get into that.
Yeah. So the reason why you worked so much this weekend, well, number one, this is the one weekend of the month you came up to Jersey. Mm-hmm. But it was also Hoboken SantaCon, which this year was renamed to HoHoHoboken.
Right.
And the reason it was renamed was because a group of the owners came together and said, hey, let's cut out all of these outside companies that are coming in and trying to throw these bar crawls, and let's do it ourselves. So they combined forces. There was about, I'd say 10 or 12 venues in Hoboken that were a part of HoHoHoboken. They sold tickets. There was a cap on per venue based on the capacity, because the town is extremely strict on this weekend. The fire marshals are out, ABC's out. They're really, really checking capacity, and they'll write venues $10,000 tickets like that.
Yeah.
So the owners did it the right way, where they kind of worked with the town and said, hey, what do we need to do to make this happen? How do we need to keep it safe? How do we need to keep our guests, not so rowdy?
Right.
And they did it. And I think it was a huge success. All the venues were really busy. And I think this is something that if you're a DJ or a manager or an owner of a venue outside of this tri-state New York City, because we do it in New York City, we do it in Hoboken and some of the other cities in New Jersey here. But if you guys don't have something like this in your market, I would highly, highly, highly recommend trying to put something like this together. You create an Eventbrite and you go find venue owners that want to participate, and you create some sort of profit structure. And I think people could make a lot of money.
Yeah, no, I agree with that wholeheartedly. But to go back to episode from last year, I don't know if an ownership group or somebody was listening to our episode post SantaCon last year, but I don't know if you recall, we said that exact thing. Why are the bar owners not getting together to try to sell tickets and not do multiple bar crawls and do one big bar crawl so that they could profit? Right. We said this. We had a whole episode about this.
One of the reasons why last year was such a failure, I thought.
Yeah. Well, you had a Santa related bar crawl go on the week before, and then you had the main one that happened that one weekend. It just flopped terribly, where I can remember video of Birch having an empty dance floor I didn't play my last track till 5 minutes to 8, and the place was still wall to wall. So by all of the bars combining forces and getting behind one big event, it was beneficial to the town. I think it relatively went safely. I think it relatively went off without a hitch. I mean, I had the fire marshal standing next to me for about 20 minutes of my set at Taco on Saturday afternoon. This was like earlier in the afternoon, maybe like 1, 2 o'clock. They were being very strict on the capacity, and which they should be. You know, like you don't have to be jamming everybody into one space. There's plenty of places, and the love can get shared and the money can get made all over the place as long as
Right. I
it's
think
done the right way.
that's the big thing. You know, the venues don't need to get greedy because you're selling tickets and then you max out your capacity, whatever that is. And then everybody can be involved. And then next year, all the venues want to push it even harder because it was successful and everyone made money. You know, it wasn't just 1 or 2 or 3 venues. It was all the participating venues in Hoboken. And that's a recipe for success, right? If it's a win-win for everyone, I don't see why next year they can't build upon this. And honestly, not even next year. This can be something that can be done for St. Patty's Day, for Halloween, for all those special event weekends. Again, if you're in a market where this stuff's not happening, take a page out of what Hoboken just did and try and unite the bars and the owners. Because think about it, if everyone's pushing out one ticket link, it's the same for everyone. It's the same price.
Yeah.
It's whoever wants to go to the event, it's the same thing. There's not a $50 cover at one place and a $20 cover at another. It's a little regulated.
What I did learn from a crowd perspective this year is that the like those midtown spots, they emptied out a little earlier because of all you have that bulk amount of bars in that one general area. So like where the Birch and Fat Taco and 80 River and all of those places are, they kept the late crowd where like people I think started up at Midtown and worked their way down. So like if you are trying to do this in your town, I think your focus is really on where the big clusters of bars are, and then you can work it out from there. But I think that's really where you need to start, is where like you have 8 places in walking distance to one another. See, even the point where you can see where the lines are from the venue. So like in the venue I worked at in the morning at Fat Taco, I saw the 80 River line. So like I knew that's how close these bars are to each other. So like and
literally across the street.
It shot way past the front of our door. So they had a crazy line early. But I think that's where the main focus needs to always be. And then get those other places that are popular on Fridays and Saturdays involved as well. But as long as they're all kind of in walking distance, nobody's taking an Uber. Because, for example, Ubers were absolutely crazy that day. I had an Uber to 2, I think, different places. So it wound up costing me, like my Uber bill this weekend was wild. But that's just, and that's why it needs to be all within walking distance. Because when you have that influx of people, obviously, transportation becomes a little tougher. But yeah, overall successful.
I'm glad it got back to being successful. It was kind of depressing last year when, you know, all these venues were pretty empty. And this is an event that I've been DJing since the first year I started DJing back in 2010 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And generally it's been a success every year, except for last year. So it's nice to see. It has been a staple of my DJ career. And actually, this is the first year I didn't DJ it.
I am shocked.
You know, I looked at my calendar. I'm like, man, I never booked myself for a SantaCon day shift. But, you know, I've been trying to pull back a little bit this month and focus on some personal things. So I was cool with it. I worked at night anyway in Hoboken, and it was a great night. So it worked out. But, you know, this was the first year where I didn't wake up at 10 and went to Hoboken to DJ 3 or 4 or however many gigs in a day that I could jam in.
I meant to ask you, like, how did that night crowd look? Did it carry out? Like, did you have any like Santa Claus carryover, or did you have like a pretty fresh new group?
It's usually a fresh group. You do get some stragglers. Most of the time, it's the people who live in town who might come back out, but they go home, they shower, they eat, they change, and then come back out type thing. But yeah, there were some Santas still bouncing around.
Oh my God.
What? So you've gotten used to kind of doing these like marathon weekends and even marathon days. So what's some advice that you could give to DJs if they're going to DJ 2 gigs? Let's say it's like 2 4-hour sets or 3 sets in a day. Like how should they prepare for it? And what are some do's and don'ts?
I think it's really important for that first set. Like conserve as much energy as possible. Like, usually that set's going to maybe be a little quieter. So I did a triple. I started at 11. I DJ till 4:30, and then I went 4:30 to 8 at Birch. It was long, but I'm not gonna lie. I played some of the same like sets, like a lot of the same sets, stuff that I knew that worked, like all that sing along stuff that was working downstairs at Taco. I carried over and just did it again.
I'll piggyback and just say that in previous years, I've done the same thing where certain things work and you go to the next place and you're like, well, if it worked at the last place, it might work again here. Not the same exact runs, but like the same type of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the mixes, as you know, I don't download a ton of different remixes of popular songs. I have like go-to 1 or 2 mixes of each popular song. And like, that's it. I just get attached to those tracks. They're usually the only ones that I really, really enjoy. I pick my favorite ones, and that's it.
Yeah.
So I did reuse a lot of different music. What I messed up with this weekend was I did not eat enough, by no means. I ate one meal on Saturday, and yesterday I didn't eat it all. Sunday I didn't eat it all. Like, just completely missed the boat on eating. So that's one thing you can definitely focus on doing.
I'd say that's eating. The most important thing is that
it really is.
You eat multiple meals and bigger meals that can fuel you through the day. And also make sure you have something in your stomach, because if you're drinking, those days can get out of hand really quickly. And if you get too drunk, you could really mess yourself up in some of the venues that you're working at, because all the owners are there, all the big decision makers are there, and you don't want to get too drunk and screw up on one of these days where they're looking for people to screw up,
If I listen, like, I drink pretty regularly, and I know, like, when I have a good buzz going on, and when that happened at any point on Saturday, I pulled back knowing that I had a late shift. Now, so it was like, oh, like, somebody wants to do a shot. I was like, well, give me a half a shot. You know what I mean? That's fine. Go get me a water with that half a shot. Like,
I think that's harder to do for some of the younger DJs who would be partying in these places if they weren't DJing in them, I mean, I've been there.
Listen, when I used to do a 13-hour set or 12-hour set for St. Patty's Day in Morristown. And like, there were years that like I was ripping Jameson shots for like 4 hours at the beginning of the set. And then like that, like, my 4 p.m. to like 6 p.m. part of the day became very difficult. So like I had that experience to where I was like, all right, let's not have that like little lull where it gets hard today. And just make sure like to hydrate. Like, if you're going to have drinks, make sure you hydrate. The Birch set was easy because the energy was so good in the room. You kind of just like fed through. Like 6:30 rolled around and I was like, oh, I'm a little tired. But like, before I knew we were done and it was over, and everybody was still
staff was like really pumped about both yours and Dario Valley's sets at Birch, and to the point where they were like, you guys got to keep the energy going from what Dario and Gary did today, because they crushed it, type thing.
So Dario, I felt like I texted you this when I walked in the room. I feel like he ratcheted up the energy. And then I was standing there going, oh my God, like, I have to now match this and then exceed it to keep everybody here, because these are the dredges of the day. That 5 o'clock is usually when people would start to leave and go home and regroup if they're going to come back out later on. And we just stayed wall to wall the whole time. But it's important that when you do play these long days that you just keep energy in your sets. I think that keeps you going more than anything. Is if you can like keep a very, very high level of energy, it just makes your life so much easier. Now, to go into my 626 set, which was my late night set, I was already in peak hour. I started at 9. I was already in peak hour at 9:45. Like,
you do that already, a lot more than I do.
And I was like, I was going hard, like playing crazy records at like, let me look. I was at, I had already been playing like Taki Taki, which is usually that still gets to garner a big reaction in that room. Played that at 10:15. Played Partition, Beyonce, huge record in that room. Played that at 10:12. So it was like, I just started hitting them over the head early. And that never stopped. Like that didn't stop until
does that affect the tail end of your night there? Or did it?
No, it didn't, because in that room particularly, I know that I can get deeper.
Later,
like
right?
later on. Like I still played Drugs from Amsterdam at 12:53. Played I Love It, 12:54. I Want to Dance with Somebody at 12:57. Oh my gosh, I played Zed Spectrum. And that was from one of the earlier sets. Somebody requested that at Fat Taco, and I was like, it like carried with me throughout the day. And then Calling at like 103. So like you can do a 4-hour high energy set, 5-hour high energy set. You just
I've never played any of those songs in 626. I don't think. Well, Whitney, yes. Drugs from Amsterdam, maybe.
They like Drugs from Amsterdam. Works. Every time we, and then
like you can get away with Calling in there.
Yeah, of course.
Really?
As long as you set it up properly. Like, let's see. Like, yeah, like, because I came off of I Want to Dance with Somebody, I Love It, Icona Pop, Let's Go, Tiesto, Icona Pop, Spectrum, Zed, and then of course like Calling just kind of fits. Like nobody realizes that like, oh wow, this might sound too Hoboken. Gosh, I played Just Want to Rock too, Level Up, We Like to Party, Venga Boys. Like it was just a crazy set. It was a crazy wild set, but it helped that I had 10 hours of DJing under my belt that day at that point.
Right. Confidence is sky high. You've had rooms packed all day. You've had people dancing all day. You walked in that place like, I'm going to own this set. You're right. Kind of drunk. You're feeling good. And you just go and rock it out. And
yeah,
I think when you're not thinking and you're just kind of playing, those are usually the best sets that we have. Right.
For sure. For sure.
And when confidence is high, we've talked about that before for sure too.
Yeah, I think that's all a part of it, right? And then just not being afraid to jump into maybe something a little different and see where it goes, and that could always spawn some new stuff.
I feel like when you have that high confidence like that, you're more willing to take some chances. Did you find yourself taking more chances?
Yeah, I took a lot more chances than I normally would in there. Even like right from Jump Street, my first song was a Shaka Khan song that I have opened with in there, but it's called Like Sugar. Guys, like I thought it was an old track, and then I went and looked it up. It's from like 5 or 6 years ago, which is crazy. And that always creates like a really good energy in that room. And then I play like a couple other like throwback disco tracks that I would not ever normally play. And that was all a big part of, I think you and I had a conversation where it was like, okay, well, when we were younger, we took a lot of chances. And I know for a fact that as an older, more established DJ, like I'm not willing to do that all the time. Usually in rooms that I'm very, very comfortable in, I'll dip into it, but maybe it's not as much as I would have 10 years ago or 12 years ago when it was like, oh, like I found this dope, I don't know, hip hop song that I really like that is really not going to be on the radio. I know that, but I'm going to play it anyway because I'll fit it in between,
right,
a Biggie track and something else that I know is going to go off. I just don't seem to do that as much anymore. And I don't know if that has to do with the like overabundance of new music that I consume of so many different genres, or if it's just the fact that I'm kind of comfortable in like what my DJ sets are. And like being so focused on like thinking about how the crowd's going to react and what they're going to think about it. I feel like also in my older age, like, yeah, it is wondering like, oh, well, is this person going to look up and be like, what the F is this? Like kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I give a shit a little too much, probably a lot of the times where, for example, on Saturday night, I did not care. And it was just like, it showed him just playing a whole bunch of different stuff.
I asked you this question because I was thinking back to when I was starting, the first 3-4 years of my career where I was opening mostly a lot of the time. So I had to figure out ways to show who I am as a DJ in those opening sets. And how I would do that would be, I always thought I had a really strong knowledge of like, EDM and particular subgenres of EDM. And I always felt like I was able to find the songs that I really, really, really liked that maybe I didn't think anyone else would really know. And I was able to like work those into my set. And I don't find myself doing that as much. Maybe I don't know why. Maybe it's because I didn't know any better back then. And I just thought that those songs were dope. So I was going to play them. Or maybe I just didn't care and I wanted to do me and show me a little bit more when I was younger. Whereas now, we look at this as we have a job to do, right? And it's like, yeah, if I can get away with playing stuff that I want to hear, of course I would love to do that. And I'm going to do that. But I'm not forcing that stuff into my sets like I used to. And I know what works. And I know what I could play 5 songs for a crowd. I'll know what the crowd is, you know what's going to work and what's going to hit for the rest of the night. And then just from all the experience, you kind of go into that mode. It's like, all right, well, this is the crowd I had. This is like the journey I'm going to take them. And you think about another place where that had a similar crowd. And you're like, well, I could play this style of set here tonight.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm kind of talking out loud. And this was something I wanted to work through on the show because I don't know the answer. I don't know,
I think part of it too is at a younger age, you're still establishing what your sound is, right? And I think the chance taking isn't just chances on songs that you like. I think you're still establishing kind of what your DJ sound is. Is it bass house? Is it, and you're kind of working through all these different genres to kind of like, all right, like, is this me? Am I super open format? Am I just a house DJ? Am I just a hip hop DJ? And I think when you're younger and you don't have so many set places that you play in, there is flexibility in being able to genre bend and genre jump because nobody's walking in expecting Cream to play a bass house set yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's something that you came up with down the road when you were a more established DJ and, you're not still trying to find your footing in the industry. I think that's a big part of it. And the only reason I'm like Chubbs comes to mind right now because he's still a young DJ on the come up, right? He kind of has a sound and he's really, really good with a certain type of music, but like that could change in 2 years. That could change in 3 years, like because like he's still growing as a DJ, And I think we all came up with a certain like, oh, I liked hip hop. I was a big hip hop and house head back, like those are the 2 main genres that I listen to all the time. So I knew that's the kind of DJ I was going to be. I was going to be a hip hop / house DJ. Or I knew that that's what I wanted to be. I got lucky that both of those things really got big.
Yeah.
And you were able to do that. But like, I think there's always room to have a little bit of different flavor in your set as a younger DJ.
I see a lot of similarities with Chubbs and how I was when I started because he's really passionate about a certain style of music and he knows all those songs and all those music. He goes to shows. He's like fully immersed in the genres that he's really into. And it shows when he goes and plays those genres in the club because he really, really knows those genres.
Yeah.
And he has a good ear and he knows what good music is. And he knows from those genres what translates to maybe someone who doesn't know those genres as well,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's good at what he does. But like I said, he just reminds me of just a young DJ that can and will develop different sounds over his DJ career.
Right.
So
part of it too, I'm going to throw this out there is that, I mean, DJs I still think are tastemakers, right? We're still kind of like, even if it's not necessarily like music that people have never heard before, we're still picking and choosing the songs to play, right? So even if there's certain things that didn't go big on TikTok, but it's a new track or it's a track off the Drake album that maybe isn't getting as much burn on the socials that we play in the club, we're still doing a little bit of tastemaking. But because of Spotify and all this stuff, there's less music to introduce to crowds, I think, than there was in 2010, where I could dig really deep into a genre. And I know that I'm going to play 5 songs that no one's maybe 1 or 5 or 10 people in the whole place have ever heard the song before, Yeah. It's harder to do that now with music that can work in a mainstream bar or club.
It's true because right. It just has to do with accessibility too. Like people just have access to everything at this point.
Yeah.
Like I like when I think I'm playing a weird track, like sometimes like 2 or 3 people come up, be like, oh, I love that song. Where 10 years ago, that wouldn't be the case because maybe they just don't have the access for that. Where like we would dig on a Beatport or we would dig on a BBC radio playlist or a DJ playlist. And go look for that stuff, where now everybody has access to those playlists and
Yeah.
Being able to download them and put them on playlists.
Yeah. Like I used to have all my secret music websites that I would go every single week and like find stuff that I was pretty sure no one else was going to know about for a few weeks at least,
Yeah. Yeah. It just doesn't really happen.
Can't do that much anymore. It's harder to do that.
And I think that's maybe where we were taking chances back in the day, right? It's those off websites that we were going to. We thought, okay, I'm taking a chance on playing this track that's big in the UK, where I know nobody over here is listening to it. But now with like Spotify, you can look at the top 40 UK, the top 40, every country that there is. You can look at the top 40 of them.
Yeah.
So there's no like, for people that are adventurous in music, they're going to be adventurous in music where they're going to go and try out all of this different stuff. So maybe it's not like you're exposing a new artist to people, because maybe they've.
I will say this though. I do think that you can go dig on SoundCloud and find remixes of songs that like nobody knows. There was a few songs that I was looking for remixes for this weekend in preparation. I was looking for that Oliver Tree song that's big on socials. I think it's called like Miss Me or Miss You or something.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking for a remix or an edit that I could use part of to create like my intro for the night for Birch. Okay. And I couldn't really find anything, but I did find this like 75 BPM, like pumping bass, really high energy version. And I ended up playing it at Birch on Saturday. And Angelo asked me to play the song. And I was like, dude, I got something for you. You're going to like this. And I played that version. He's like, yo, this is fire. Where did you find it? I was like, SoundCloud, just searching for a remix of this song. So I do still think you could go to SoundCloud and go to Hype Edit. And if you're looking for something in particular, you can go find a remix that might have 1,000 or less plays. That's pretty dope.
Yeah. All right. So you still have a place that you go and you can dig on.
That's about the only one.
Yeah. At least it's a place. At least it's still a place. At least there's still a place to do it.
And like 1,001 track lists just to go see what some of the bigger artists are playing in their sets. It's nice to go see like who's supporting what records that just came out that maybe will be like the next big record type thing.
That's something I haven't done in a long time. Probably a lot. Yeah, I think a lot for this year. I haven't really done it. I think because I'm not DJing as often, and I do want to make sure that I'm still playing what's the popular stuff.
Right.
Because even some of that popular stuff it's new music to me, because I'm not in a club every weekend.
Makes sense. All right, so let's move on here. We talked about end of the year stuff. We have goal calls set up with some of our DJs, and we're going to get through goal calls with probably all of our DJs in the next month here.
Right. And
we were kind of coming up with some of the questions that we wanted to ask our guys. And I don't know where I saw this, but I saw the question that a manager might pose to one of their, employees. And the question was like, what is your edge, right? What makes you stand out? And I think this is a question we're going to ask all of our guys. So I wanted to bring it up on the show, and we could kind of go back and forth on what you think your edge is. And I'll do the same. And we could kind of go, comment on it and see if we agree.
I think the question was posed on a Tim Ferriss podcast. I think that we were listening to it together. It might have been the one that he had the Culver's owner on.
Yeah. Yeah. Could have been that one.
I think that might have been the guy who asked his employee that question, because I think they were asking for a raise or something like that. All right. So, I mean, I think there's like the DJ Gary W, and then there's also like business owner Gary W. I think you can look at it from either way. Well, that's the answer that I came up with, is a hybrid of both. It's changed from years ago, from pre-Get Down. It's changed. My edge years ago as just a DJ was it's funny, we were just had this conversation, was the different music I played. I just stylistically had a different style than most DJs in the area.
Yeah.
And I liked to play like places that like were more sing-along and things like that. But then I also brought that into like the club, something that kind of AM was doing, where like he would play like these bar mitzvah type tracks and bring that to the nightclub.
Yeah.
It was like a little bit of a steal of that, but also like mixing indie rock into my set. So like taking weird chances, but at the right times of the night to where it would garner crazy reaction, and I think keeping people around and having, and like the goal, my goal had always been have the biggest spend of the weekend. Like did my night do the best the whole weekend? That was always the goal. Right. That's not something that I realized later on was so business forward. It just made the most sense for me.
Yeah.
Can I keep the room? Can I keep the room as full as possible? I don't want them going anywhere else. And that was my edge as a young DJ. I think later on it became more like I could be professional and then also be friendly with the staff and kind of have this hybrid professional / friends with the stash / decent DJ. And I think that became a real selling point later on.
I would agree with all that. I would add one more thing. I think as, get down owner, I would say your edge would be Coach Gar,
Yeah.
like the stuff that you have picked up over all the years of teaching and coaching. And I think bringing that to our company and in working with our DJs, I think you have a way with being able to give criticism and, help DJs get better in a way that you get your point across, you don't hurt their feelings, and you make them want to like change whatever criticism that you give them, or, on the other side too, it's if you're giving praise, but it's harder to give criticism. I think
it's a line.
To me, that's one of your biggest edges.
Because the style, right? The style that I learned to use as a teacher was be harsh to where that like you didn't do this well, right? But then follow it up and be like, well, this is where I think that you are really good. And then you can kind of get the ball rolling or the wheels turning in somebody's head being like, all right, well, I messed up here, but I'm really good there. Well, now how can I kind of like put all this together in order to make this a positive all the time, right?
Yeah.
So that was always a big coaching. Even when I was coaching when I was 21, that was a big thing to do because I think that's how my dad coached, right? Like he'd give it to you, but then he'd let you know later on, like, still all right, you still did well here, there, and the other place. So, it's a hybrid of it's a hybrid of an old school coaching style along with a new school coaching style.
For sure. I think that's good though, because the people that we're working with, they came up with a different style of being coached or taught or criticized. So
yeah,
it's a different generation. I think they work through things differently than we did when we were younger.
For sure. Just as our parents had different coaching,
right.
To them, So yeah. How about you? I mean, I know all yours. I mean, I like all right offhand, I know all yours.
I would say for DJing, it's more so like the marketing and business and promotion side of being able to kind of create this style and this brand and this name before my DJ skills were even that good, to be quite honest. I was able to move quickly in the DJ world because all of that other stuff, my edits and my branding and the way my logos looked and my website and, giving t-shirts away and all that stuff, to me was my edge when I started DJing. And my DJ skills were okay. I wasn't the best DJ. I'm still not the best DJ, but my DJ skills caught up to all that marketing stuff. But all that marketing and promo and business stuff was what helped me propel quicker than some of the other guys that started out at the same time as me. So I would say that's a huge edge for me still, even though I'm not as active on socials and stuff. I think my brain is always thinking in that way. How can we market something? How can we promote it? How can I get my edits out to more people? How can we create more fans? So that would be my edge as far as the DJ side of things. But I think for the business side of things, I would say my biggest edge is the ability to bring people together and create networks and shrink networks. So like have this get down idea in this small little area and then take this get down idea and bring it to a much larger area type thing.
Right.
you know, how can we help this person in another state, like link with another person in another state, and they're going to help each other. And that shrinks our market. And then we have connections in all these places. And like, I think that's something I've always been really, really good at. I actually just really like it. You know, I like networking. I like meeting new people. I like bringing people together. So to me, that's my business edge, I'd say.
Yeah, and I think behind the scenes, what people wouldn't see or don't see is your organizational skills are excellent. You know, they're even me, who came from a, you know, quite a large sports program, just for a middle school sports program. We had a large program. I was the athletic director there, and I was very organized there. But then, like, this is a much bigger thing, and your organizational skills really drive our back end. So I think that's something that you're really, really good at, whether you realize it or not. Whether you want to call that being anal, or do you want to call
definitely,
that being
I was going to say, like,
OCD?
that's my OCD.
Yeah.
Of just like being overwhelmed or stressed until that back end stuff is clear and understandable, right, and like laid out.
Yeah. So very, 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 very good at that. But
so on the surface, that could look like an edge, and on the back end, it's like me and my brain on the hamster wheel killing myself.
But yeah, I mean, I agree with those, with everything at the beginning of your career. You really, it made me say, who the fuck is this guy? Like, who the fuck does this guy think he is? Like, coming out here, giving all this merch out, doing this, that, and the other. And it's like, you know, and then I heard some mixes, and you had done a bunch of work at West 5. And I'm like, oh, well, your DJing skills weren't bad at all by any means.
Yeah, they weren't bad, but they weren't great.
I expected them to be much worse, to be honest.
Yeah.
You know? And that's what was like, you know, who's this guy or whatever. And then it wound up, you know, you wound up being a very good networker as well. Like, you know, you networked well with me, you networked with everybody at West 5 very well. And then DJs and so on. So like, that was all, it's, you realized that early, and you kind of wrote it pretty strong.
I DJ'd a whole lot too. Like, I took everything, anywhere I could go and play. I took, like we talked about, I took gigs at West 5 so I could get better at playing on turntables, because I didn't own turntables at the time. Like, stuff like that just helped me get better at that stage where I knew my brand was growing quicker than my skills, and I needed to like figure out a way to speed my skills up a little bit.
That's a great point. Like, I hadn't mixed a song in a month, right? I walk into my first set the other day, and just because I put in so many hours this week, like by the time I was at my second set, like it was so super clean, just because, you know, I'm just getting the hours in. You're just putting the hours in. So like, not that I'm not clean anyway, but like, for not DJing for a month, like I shouldn't be that sharp. Right.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing for you young guys. Like, if there's afternoon gigs that are open and you're not doing anything, go. It's a lot different than sitting in your bedroom and DJing to the wall. Like, because then you can like pick out those, even if they're not great gigs, there's going to be people at that bar that you can pick out that are vibing, that you can focus on. And it's like, oh, well, they vibed to this reggae set, and now I could get reggae work in that, like, maybe I wouldn't get at a night gig.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's the mentality that you need to take as a young DJ. Take as much work as possible. Take as much, because there's plenty of gigs around there, out there, and there's plenty of gigs that might not be that great. But it, like I said, it's better than sitting and DJing in your bedroom, in your office, whatever it might be, because there's actual people to DJ for. It gives you a little more motivation as well. And then you don't even realize that, like, yeah, you are playing all these different genres, and now you're finding new ways to mix, and you're finding new songs to play, and there's just so much that can be learned in just working.
Yeah. To piggyback on that too, in doing those sets, let's say, you know, you find this like crowd of people that are into reggae music, right? And maybe you don't have a lot of reggae music. So that's an opportunity for you to go home and do your homework, right? And go find the top 20 reggae songs that the next time you're in that situation where someone's asking to play reggae, you did a little homework from the last time that someone asked you to play reggae and you didn't have that much. That was always something that was really helpful for me too, is that back-end prep work to tighten up the subgenres and genres where maybe you're not as good, you know? Maybe you don't know the reggaeton as well as you should. Like go to that classic reggaeton Spotify playlist and work through it and find 10 songs that you could use in your set. And it's just good, you know? That's how you learn. That's how you get better. That's how you grow as a DJ.
Sometimes you got to get thrown into the fire. Like it's not always going to be comfortable. I can name so many gigs where I was asked to play a certain genre and me being like, you know, I don't have enough to get into this for an hour, but maybe I could appease this person for 10 minutes, you know? And then they'll come up and say, oh, well, you don't have this artist and you don't have that artist. Well, start writing those down. So then you can go get those artists. I remember I did an older people's party and they wanted just disco and just old 54 heads they were. And I was just like, I don't have any of this stuff. None of it. Like I have like all the stuff that I say I don't like now that you guys are like, oh, that's a classic disco, you know, like whoever might be the Bee Gees or whatever. Like that's the stuff that like when I would play that at that particular party, and I DJ'd for this family a few times, they're like, no. We don't want to hear Casey and the Sunshine Band. We don't want to hear the Bee Gees. That's not disco.
Yeah.
They're like, that's commercial. That's, you know, Britney Spears of that, you know, they're like, we want to hear disco music, real disco, you know, and that's where I learned. And and then it became 20 years later, it became popular and I get to play it now all the time. A lot of that back wall disco funk stuff. And like those moments will stick with you. So if you're afraid that if you're afraid of that confrontation in like, oh, I don't have it, like you need to throw yourself in those situations just so it's just a great learning experience. It's stuff that'll just stick with you forever. And you'll learn how to like dig and how to create different crates for different genres. And
that stuff's definitely happened to me a lot at private events. And if someone say, hey, can you play salsa or can you play whatever? And I'd be like, well, I don't really know the difference between salsa and bachata and reggaeton or whatever, you know, whatever the case was back then. Right. Where it's like, all right, well, next time I need to know the difference between salsa and bachata or merengue or whatever.
Right.
And you go do the homework and you learn and then you reorganize your crates. So the next time someone asks you to play that song, you don't feel like an idiot again.
Yeah. That feeling never goes away.
Yeah.
You know, it still happens to me, you know, from time to time. And it's just the best way to learn, in my opinion. And if you're afraid of those moments and you're afraid, like you shouldn't be, because you just got to take, especially these young guys, like you guys just got to take that chance and go play a uncomfortable party to learn. It's okay. Like it's okay to mess up.
Yeah. One other thing I wanted to say about playing some of those day sets or like slower sets where maybe it's not the most high energy, but there are people that are vibing with you. That's the single best time to make fans that are going to come hang out with you at all your sets at night when you do go play the bigger gigs.
Yeah.
Like you build your fan base on some of those afternoon sets or slower sets where maybe they do come up to you and ask you for requests and you play them because there's not a lot of people there and they're vibing. And like that group of friends has a really good time. And then they're like, well, where are you tomorrow? Because we want to go out at night and where are you going to be? Like we had a great time today. And then they come and they have a great time. And then the next time that they want to go out, they hit you up. And like, that's how you build a local fan base. And if you have a local fan base, you're going to get booked in your market all day. All day. Yeah. I used to get booked because people used to call and say, hey, is Cream working tonight at whatever venue, like Birch or Teak when I was a resident? And they'd be like, hey, is Cream there? All right, we're going to get a table tonight. Owners fucking love that shit.
Love it. Yeah.
Love it.
It happened to me a lot at Taco, not to where they wanted to know where it was going to be, but I was just taking a bunch of requests because what their capacity was at was a lot less than what could fill that room. So we were at capacity, but it didn't look slammed. So it was like people would come up and request a song and I played immediately. Like then I didn't care if it fit or if it didn't fit. I would just play it immediately. And then the same thing would happen like 3 or 4 times in a row. And I was like, well, just playing like random songs, like 3 times in a row. But it kept all those people so excited to be there, you know, instead of like trying to figure out where to like place things. Like, and that's where taking requests is so important too, because especially in situations like that, like to just keep people happy. And that's what your job is. You know, that's your job. Just keep people happy.
All right. So on these days, these SantaCons and holidays that are day shifts that are a little different, where you're playing more fun music, right? Where do you draw the line? So like for me, when I talk to brides and stuff, I'd be like, listen, like, if you want a nightlife experience, I can bring that to the table. But like, I'm not playing Cotten Eyed Joe. I'm not playing, what else? Like the cha-cha slide. Like, I'm not playing any of that.
Are you playing Mambo #5? Big shout out to Dario.
No, I'm absolutely not. Sorry, Dario. I'm not playing YMCA. I'm not playing the Macarena. Right. I'm not playing any of that stuff. Ever. I don't care if it's a tech house remix. All right, maybe occasionally on a tech house remix. But what's the line for you? And like, what do you think about some of those things? A lot of our DJs play this stuff for fun sets like this, and even in their nightlife sets occasionally.
So at Birch, I'm going to tell you right now, at Birch, I played Macarena Mac J remix, and I played all the time, and I really love it. But I did when I play, I think it was Mac J, right? Let me look real quick. Yes, the Mac J edit. I play that often when I'm doing a fun like sing along type set, and I want to like really mix it up a little bit. I cringed when I played it though. Like as soon as like the dent like that part came in, I was like, oh man, should I have done this? But then the drop comes in. The way he edited it is amazing. Then the drop comes in. It was really good. I felt like that was like my line on Saturday. Like that was it. Because
and it was
like
an EDM remix.
Yeah. I mean, I said, like, I don't like playing the cha-cha slide. I played it at brunch one day at 626, like 2 months ago. And like the whole place danced and everybody was having a great time.
I think cha-cha slide's the one that I can give a pass to because I don't know. Cha-cha slide's more like, it seems just more like a barbecue track that like more, it's not as corny to me.
Right. It has a good beat. And speaking of, and we spoke about this right before the pod, but the new edit by Patrice McBride, it's a Patrice McBride drum edit is
it's
excellent.
Fire.
Excellent. I didn't play it all weekend like an idiot. I don't know why I didn't.
I downloaded it and was like, man, can I sneak this in somewhere? And just never did. But talking about it will make me do it this weekend.
Yeah, definitely play it. Let me know how it goes. But like that was even on the edge for me. But like Mambo #5, I'm not playing it. YMCA, I feel like is so corny. And I don't know if that's because, that really blew up when we were younger with the Yankees.
Yeah.
And now it's just kind of like tradition with them. But like, I remember remember how that was like a huge thing. It was like on the news, like when they first started doing it.
Yeah.
And like from that point on, I'm like, this shit's corny. Like I'm not playing this. It's bad enough that I don't even play like too many Bee Gees tracks like from disco era. Forget the YMCA. I don't know. Those are not even in the most fun atmospheres do I play that stuff. I think where I get corny is like old Britney stuff, NSYNC and Backstreet Boys. I'll play some of that stuff, but even that stuff's redrummed and edited and.
Is it too white? It's too white? Is it?
That could be part of it. It could be part of it. It could be like the stigma of it being too white. Maybe that. I don't know. I just think it's corny. I think that's just what it comes down to. And I mean, I was the king of playing like corny stuff back in the day, but like, I guess things have definitely evolved. Though we have said in months past here is that I think that we have younger crowds now that are more receptive to sing along stuff.
I think they all go off. Like I think they all go off. But I'm just not, me personally, I just can't do it for how I feel on the inside when I play those songs. I can't do it.
Doug Spin sent me a video from Hair of the Dog, Saturday night, peak hour, Cotten Eyed Joe, places going apeshit. Like crazy.
I bring this up not to stop people from doing this stuff.
No, play this stuff.
If you play this stuff and it works for you, keep playing it. Do it.
Heck yeah.
It's a way to take a chance or step out of the norm. it's fine. Do your thing. I think I'm speaking from me personally. It just doesn't feel right to me.
I have to, when I start to get into this stuff, this is not a thought process. This is a gut feeling that I get. And I'm like, all right, it's time to get into like sing along corny shit.
I get nervous.
Well, there's just a feel like I don't know, like I'm not setting it up purposely, but like there's people are just like really into maybe the sing along EDM stuff and they're going crazy to that. And it's like, all right, well, it's time to really like dip it down into some weird shit. Like I get a gut feeling about it. And that's the only time I go into it. I haven't really had that in a long while. Actually, that's a lie. When I played Hair of the Dog, you can get away with a lot in there.
Yeah.
You get a lot of rope, especially when it comes to that stuff. And it's a great way to set yourself apart, even especially if you're bringing it in a different way. I don't know if I said this on the podcast, but I dropped All I Want for Christmas out of nowhere by Mariah Carey, and then did Mo Bamba, like literally beat matched Mo Bamba into it because it worked. And it was like the biggest reaction of the night. And like, that's super corny, but like, you know what? Like coming out of it was really, it was really awesome. People had a great time.
It's just like anything else, right?
Right.
It's not always the songs that you play. It's how you can bring songs in and out and make them gel and work together. And that's how you get the reaction. It's how you do it sometimes, not always what you play. So I think the All I Want for Christmas into Mo Bamba, because not one person in the room probably thought you were going to play Mo Bamba after Mariah.
Right.
And it was just like, oh shit, I can't believe he just did that type thing.
Right.
And so not to mention, like, they're both bangers.
It's oftentimes right. Yeah, it's what you're playing before and what you're playing after is a huge part. Now, like, you can't go on like guys in the comments. Let me know if anybody's gone on a run of like a Cotten Eyed Joe, Mambo No. 5, and name another track.
Yeah, then all of a sudden you're at a Sweet 16 or like a prom. You're not at the bar anymore, the club.
Right. But I'd be curious to hear what people are setting these tracks up with and what they're coming out of them with as well, because you're right. It's more about that part of it than the track itself.
I've heard some other cool transitions with the Mariah thing this holiday season, where you go when she says, "All I want for Christmas is you," or whatever.
Right.
Like you could drop the what is it, Soulja Boy, you.
Wow. Okay. I like
so
that.
That's one that I've done and heard done.
Okay.
And then Solana was talking about doing I can't remember if it was All I Do Is Win into Mariah or vice versa, but there was one way to do it that I heard and was like, wow, that actually really worked too.
It just sits in this great, 75 BPM where you can like drop it down to 68 or speed up your 68 BPM track or bring down an 80 BPM track. But like, there's so many different things you can do with it. And you have nice little like ebbs and flows of the song where you can mix in and out. So,
yeah. All right. Well, let's close out here talking about like what we're listening to right now. We've been talking a lot about music here, but on Saturday after my Birch set, I was riding pretty high. I was driving home and I just played like an open format, but a lot of different types of music. And I put Spotify on and I was like, I wanted to listen to a particular Slum Village track because I was talking to a DJ about Jay Dilla, who produced a lot of Slum Village stuff. So I listened to that track and then Spotify just kind of plays random after that. And it went into an album I've talked about on the show, but the Reflection Eternal album. And I went down this road of like listening to some of the whole Slum Village, Detroit Deli album, the whole Reflection Eternal, Talib Kweli High Tech album. I listened to one of the Wu-Tang. I think it was maybe Ghostface Killah Supreme Clientele. And I was like listening to these full albums. Even when I got home and was taking a shower, like I just got in the zone. And I couldn't believe how many lyrics that I still remembered from 10, 15, 20 years ago, not really listening to these albums in full in quite a long time. And I was just like, man, I can't believe I remember all these songs, number one, and all the lyrics, and just how good to me they still all are.
Some of that stuff just never leaves, because you know what? When we were younger, that like you would play that stuff on repeat. And the aim was to learn all the
Right. Like it's just
the
ingrained
words.
in your brain.
Yeah. I played something at oh my gosh. I played something at Shepherd the other day that both Doug and I were like, whoa, we haven't heard this in so long. And that doesn't happen often for me. I'm gonna look for it for a second. Albums were listening to full albums was a thing. You'd sit down and you would listen. We've talked about this a little bit, but you'd listen to track progression and where things were placed on the album. And I feel like, even correct me if I'm wrong, but like it got to a point where you'd be like, oh well, I'm just going to use for example, this isn't true. Like Jay-Z's seventh song was always fire on his album. Like, and like people would like start to come up with like these theories around where track placement was. Another thing that Doug and I brought up was, do you remember secret tracks? Because it can't exist anymore.
What, where like you play the end of the album and there's like a 3-minute nothing, and then all of a sudden you get a bonus track?
I think the Jay-Z had Girls, Girls, Girls remix on one of his albums, and it was like 8.5 minutes later. Like you had to really be sitting there for a while to know
there
that
was
there.
there was also like an outro on, fuck, I can't remember what album it is, but I think it was a Jay-Z album or maybe a Rockefeller album where Kanye tells the whole story of like meeting Jay-Z and working with Rockefeller. And it's like literally like an 8-minute story. And then it goes into like Keys to the Rock or whatever that track was. I forget what I don't remember what album that was off of, but
yeah, there was, I'm looking at my, yeah, I'm not even going to say that I played this on air. Actually, yeah. I played I Got a Story to Tell, which is one of my favorite all-time Biggie tracks. And like, still know every single word, like no problem. I played that into Cheat on You, Lil C's Jay-Z, the Mace track, into Cameron 357. So now you have an idea of what kind of rabbit hole we went down at Shep on Sunday. But like knew the words to all those songs, hadn't played any of them in years, probably.
Yeah.
So that was really interesting.
I definitely used to sit there and listen to the CD and rewind back parts that I wanted to learn. And I'd listen to the same song over and over and over again. And one song that comes to mind, and especially one verse from this particular song, but Inspector Deck's verse off of Wu-Tang Triumph.
Okay.
Bomb atomically, Socrates for us. Like that verse, I literally sat there and rewound until I knew the entire thing.
Really?
And I listened to it the other day and I could still rhyme most of it. Not that I'm going to do that for anyone. So don't but like in the car, I could do that off the dome right now.
That's hilarious yeah, I mean, I guess there were just those songs that people would do that to. There was that one Biggie, Big Pun verse. Was that from Twins? Maybe
Dead in the Middle, Little Italy, Little did I know. Yeah.
What is that? Twins?
Could be
another classic. But it's funny that you brought this up because we got Doug and I had this conversation on Sunday.
Yeah, Twins.
Man, so that's what you're listening to. I have an artist that I've been listening to the last 2 weeks that I forgot to bring up on last week's podcast, but I've dug back into Bruce Springsteen like big time.
Really?
He's starting a tour, and he has an incredible interview with Howard Stern on HBO Max, I think it is. Yeah, HBO Max. Interview with Howard Stern is like 2 hours long. And it is so very interesting. And he just obviously talks about Jersey a lot, almost to exhaustion, and kind of like how he made his chops coming up. At a time when he was like naming like all these different towns I didn't even know were in and around the Jersey Shore. And he talked about all these different like clubs, and he's like, oh, I had a lot of experience. This is really actually very interesting that he said, I had a lot of experience on stage before I signed my first record. And then he cited like playing like the Fireman's Parade. And then but he looked at that as real experience. So like I had said before, even those crappy gigs, if you just have the chops to get up and play those crappy gigs in front of people, you're still gaining quote unquote stage experience, right?
Yep.
So I thought that was a really interesting thing for him to say that. Like he was a seasoned vet by the time he was 17. Well, I guess if you do log all of those hours, on the guitar, on a stage in front of people, performing for people, you're really honing your craft well. And I think that's an important lesson for people. Because even at where he's at almost 70 years old, he still looks at that as extremely important experience. Check that out. That's a really cool interview.
I love Howard Stern. I haven't really listened to him in a really long time, but despite some of his antics and stuff, like I think he's an incredible interviewer sometimes. So I'm interested to go watch that. I think he's one of the best at getting people to like tell stories or give information that they would never think they were going to say in an interview. And that's a skill for sure. So I'm definitely going to go check that out.
He's a hardcore fan, so it makes it even better.
Yeah.
But
cool.
All right.
One other thing though, before we close up here that I wanted to finish up with was just talking. I realized this as we were talking about it, but we've been talking about how I've been listening to more hip hop lately. Honestly, I think it's because I like consuming music as albums. I like to go on that journey. I like to see the track layout. I like to listen through all the songs and see the progression and pick out the ones that I really like. And I just like consuming music that way. And I really didn't realize that I do until recently, listening to all these hip hop albums in the gym. So, and then going back and talking about the albums from years ago. So that's just an interesting thing that I've realized live on air.
Yeah, I'm a singles consumer when it comes to hip hop, but I'm more of like a long form with like rock albums, like where I'll throw the vinyl down on my record player here.
Well, we consume singles all day, every day for our job,
Yeah.
So like going and listening to music like that to me is more for enjoyment and not as much, well, can I play this in my sets? Of course, I'm always thinking that. But when I go hit play, that's not the reason why I'm hitting play. Whereas when I sit here and go through all my record pools and Beatport, I'm doing that for a purpose for the weekend type thing.
Good point. I like it.
Oh, man.
Right. Good conversation today.
Yeah, great convo. This episode went way longer than I ever thought it would go. But
yeah, for sure.
A couple things to promo before we leave here. Get Down DJ's edit pack is out. It's available on Instagram or in the show notes here. It's 30 plus edits, DJs from all over the world. It's number 5 right now on Hype Edit. It's been doing really awesome. I think it's the best edit pack we've ever done. There's some really dope artists on there. I mean, I can't even name them all, but like Sergio, Ferrari, Gin and Sonic, Beatzilla Bossa Nova. There's a ton of people on there. All the Get Down guys, all the DMP guys. So definitely go check that out. My DJ Cream best top 20 of 2022 is also in the top 10 on Hype Edit. So that's anywhere you can find my stuff. You can go get that. 20 of my favorite edits of the year. And then finally, we're presented again by Digital Music Pool. If you want to go try DMP, there is a link in the show notes. You could try DMP for the first month for $9.99. It's an awesome site. So many dope remix artists. We just had Pat C on, Angelo the Kid, and we've named all those DJs every episode. But you can go check out all the exclusive artists. I think they have one of the best, if not the best, list of exclusive editors of any of the record pools.
Yeah.
So
for sure,
check that out. Everybody enjoy Hanukkah, Christmas, the holidays. I hope you guys take some time off, relax, spend time with family and friends, and we appreciate you. So thank you guys for listening to this episode. My name is Kareem.
Gary W.
Peace out.
Peace, guys.